Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum and I'm here today at Guns.com checking out some of the more interesting guns in their warehouse. And today we have a pair of Ruger P85 pistols. This is Ruger's very first semi-auto centerfire pistol, and it's not particularly sexy or exciting or innovative, although sort of a little bit in manufacturing methods. And that kind of reflects, as far as I see it, Ruger as a company in general. They're a kind of a boring gun company when you look at them from the outside. You're like, what's the coolest, the cool hot new thing that Ruger's introduced into the market? And the answer is, Ruger doesn't introduce cool, sexy, exciting new things into the market. What Ruger does is make kind of no frills, durable, effective, basic firearms that become long-term popular, very successful. And Ruger just kind of keeps chugging along, making boring guns that just work when everyone else is trying to make flashy, exciting things, and sometimes they explode spectacularly, metaphorically speaking. And sometimes they do well, but no one ever really thinks about Ruger. Ruger's out there making tons of guns that are become very common. Today's video is generously sponsored by Guns.com. It's a great place to check out all sorts of cool new toys available, new and used. And if you're an FFL dealer, you may be interested in taking advantage of their dealer outlet section. That is a place where they take used firearm ads from their network of brick and mortar FFLs around the country and give them access to the more than 1 million monthly viewers that they get over on Guns.com. So it's a great way to get some additional visibility to inventory that you have sitting. You can set your own price, your own description, and put it up for people around the country to have access to. Check them out. Anyway, Ruger has a lot of semi-auto pistols now, and this is where it all began. So this dates to 1985, as the name implies. It was designed by two guys at Ruger, Roy Melcher and Larry Larson. Larson apparently was responsible for sort of the cosmetic aspects and Melcher for the mechanical ones. And what they came up with is a pretty basic Browning tilting barrel style of pistol. There's not a whole lot novel about the mechanism here. We have a slide-mounted safety lever, double action, double stack, single feed box magazine. You know, the box magazine's fundamentally based on the high power magazine, as are most. Just nothing really exciting. Ruger at this point, by the way, had been looking at the potential of entering government pistol trials. The government, everyone knew the US military was looking to get rid of the 1911 and adopt a 9mm. And the trial dates kind of shifted around, and Ruger decided in 1985, it's, all right, we're not going to try and time it to get specifically the pistol developed specifically for these military trials, because we think this pistol has potential for both civilian, well, both commercial and law enforcement sales, even if the military thing doesn't happen. So it's worth doing anyway. We're just going to go ahead and do it, and if we can get into the military trials, great. And they, in fact, miss the initial M9 pistol trials. But they are there in time to get into the XM10 trials. We'll talk about that in a moment. Anyway, Ruger introduces this as a single-action, double-action automatic, 1985. First production is in 1987. And it starts off nice and slow. They make like 7,000 of them in 1987, and it picks up. And almost immediately they start getting police contracts in particular. The guns are selling on the commercial market. They're exporting them to international military and security forces as well. Production by the very second year, 1988, they're up to over 30,000 guns. 1989, they make more than 80-some thousand Ruger P85s. So the pistol takes off. As it turns out, little spoiler, by 1993, combining all the iterations they'd made up to that point, they had produced more than 700,000 of the P-series pistols. And when you think about like how cool and exciting is the Ruger P85, well, it's not very cool and exciting, and yet, as Ruger seems to always do, or often do, it becomes very commercially successful. Now, how do they do that? Well, it's largely based on price point. You need, if you want to sell a lot of guns, it needs to be a gun that is reliable, durable, and cost-effective. Now, Ruger's core competency as a manufacturing company is casting. And prior to this, there hadn't been a lot of thought of casting pistols. Some people have tried it, but it wasn't the mainstay. Most people are going to use either stampings or forgings that are then milled. Ruger looks at this and goes, you know what, we can make a cast pistol. And in fact, the slides on the P85s are made out of 4130 steel, cast. The frames are made out of aluminum alloy, cast. And because they were able to understand how to design the parts so that, yes, cast parts are potentially less strong than forged and milled parts, but that doesn't mean they're not strong enough. It just means you have to design them with those material properties in mind. And Ruger was able to do that in a way that no one else had before them. And that allowed them to make a very cost-effective, very economical pistol. So they're able to sell this thing nice and cheap, which means they're going to get a lot of contracts. Anyway, let's take a closer look, and I will show you the complete lack of really sexy, exciting features in these. We'll go ahead and use this one as our disassembly example. Controls, we've got this slide-mounted safety lever. So pulled down is the safe position. You can see the white dot there for safe. Pushed forward, red dot, it's in the fire position. It is DASA, so I can fire it in double action like so, or I can manually cock the hammer. And of course, no matter what, when I'm shooting the gun, well, after the first shot, it cocks itself back into single action mode. We have a magazine release here that is truly ambidextrous. So you've got levers on both sides, and you just kind of push that forward, and it will drop the magazine out. These use 15-round magazines. There are 3 witness holes there on the back. We'll get to the other versions in a minute, but in 40 caliber, they would be 11-round mags. In 45 caliber, they would be single-stack 7-round magazines. And starting in 1994, when the assault weapons ban goes into effect, of course, the Ruger magazines drop to 10 rounds. And because I know people will mention it if I don't, Bill Ruger Sr., who started the company and was still running it at this point, engendered a tremendous amount of ill will when the assault weapons ban was being passed for coming out publicly supporting the magazine size restrictions that were part of it. Ruger had a simmering boycott on its hands from some very unhappy people for a very long time. There are still a lot of people you go to and you mention Ruger to them, and they will deny any interest in any Ruger firearms as a result of that, which is now 30 years ago. So that sort of thing can really stick in people's minds. Anyway, got a whole paragraph warning label here. Sturm Ruger and Company on the slide. Serial number, the 300 series was the original P85. Caliber on the barrel. Big ol' Ruger P85 marking on the left side of the slide there. Both the safety and the magazine release are ambidextrous, which is kind of cool. And of course, the Ruger logo and Ruger name on the grip panels. Overall, this is a big, chunky handgun. It is just bulky, and that is because it is all cast. There's more material in this than you would have in a milled steel version that would be trimmed down and slimmer, but Ruger wasn't really concerned with trying to optimize, for the last 1% in size efficiency. They wanted to make the gun big enough to be strong enough, to be durable enough, to be a successful product. And they did that. These things are kind of like the bomb-proof old trucks of the firearms world. Now, to disassemble this, it's fundamentally the same as basically every other pistol you're used to. So we're going to lock this back, hold the slide back, and you can then push the lever here out. Once that's started, you can pull it out. It is actually a captive slide stop, which is kind of cool. That's about the flashiest thing on here, probably. Now, at this point, you can just pull the slide off. However, if you run into a problem of the slide won't come off, what you need to do is reach in here, take the ejector, and push it down. See, I've pushed that forward and down. That will allow the slide to slide neatly off the front of the gun. Once we've got this apart, we can pull this out. We've got a recoil spring guide and spring, not captive, just stuck together there, but not a captive spring. The barrel comes out the back. The barrel is also a cast piece. They make this, after a very short bit of production run, they ended up making these as single piece items. So again, cast the outside, mill it down to shape, bore a hole in it, rifle it. Very manufacturing efficient sort of system. It does have a swinging link. Ruger did not go to the high power style of cam. Inside the slide, we have a firing pin stop right here. So if that's not pushed up by a lever over here in the frame, the firing pin can't go forward. So very basic drop safety element there. In the back, We have our firing pin here in the middle, so the hammer will strike that, and you can see if we look at it this way, it is just barely sticking up so the hammer will hit it. If I put this into safe, it's going to do a couple things. First, it's actually going to lock the firing pin so that it can't move anymore. It goes just this tiny bit forward and then hits a stop. And it also flips that little protrusion up. And so that if you drop the hammer while the safety is engaged, the hammer will actually hit that lug, which is part of the safety cylinder here, and it won't hit the firing pin at all, even though the firing pin is already locked so that it can't move. You've got some redundant systems going on there. Got 3 white dot sights. I mentioned those while we're taking a look right there. And that's it. Cast, finish milled where necessary. We've got 2 pins holding the front sight in to make sure that it doesn't go accidentally flying off. Rear sight's just dovetailed in place. Frame has a pretty basic double action fire control group there. You can see the linkage connecting here that's going to pull the hammer back in semi-auto. Nothing particularly unusual about the frame here. I will go ahead and take off the grip panels here. There's just one big screw on each side. Pop that off. Simple cast plastic grip panels. The frame is just one single piece, all cast. You can see the hammer spring down in there. I forgot to mention there is a lanyard loop on it. Classic law enforcement sort of feature there. And that's about it. Basic single action, double action fire control system. Voila. One field stripped Ruger P85. There you go. Following the chronology a bit more, in 1988, the US military holds the XM10 pistol trials. Ruger is there, they enter the P85. They don't win, Beretta wins, but they do make some improvements to the pistol, and those get rolled into the commercial sale pistols as the P85 Mark II. That'll run for a couple of years. They then move to the P89 model in 1989, or designed in 89. I think it came onto the market in 1990. The P89 will add a decocking mechanism. So it's not just a safety now, it's also a decocker. And then they start to add other options. You can have examples that are double action only. You can have them that have a decocker only and not a safety. They will add other models in like the P90 in 45 ACP, the P91 in 40 Smith & Wesson. They will add the P93 and P94, which are medium frame or medium barrel length and compact length. And not by much. This is a 4.5-inch barrel standard. The medium is 4.2 and the compact is 4-inch, so they're pretty similar in size. But they expand the family of these pistols in a way that allows them to sell a whole lot more variations without that much fundamental increase in their costs, because they share all the fundamental parts and they're cheap to cast. They've got the casting tooling already essentially paid for. It's as a business proposition, the P-Series pistols were very effective and profitable. Like I said, by 1993, they'd made more than 700,000 of these pistols. So you will eventually find these in a variety of configurations, calibers, etc. Now in 1995, they introduced the P95, and that's basically the beginning of the end of this original family of aluminum-framed Ruger pistols. The P95 will be Ruger's first polymer-framed pistol. They'll add in a few extra variations on that, like the P97 in different calibers. And then in 2007, they released the first of the SR series, which is sort of the modern striker-fired instead of hammer-fired pistol. And the SR is, I believe, what Ruger's still running right now. So I thought it was worth taking a look at this. It's not a gun that's really exceptionally exciting or flashy. Like, nothing Ruger does is those things, but they're guns that have a significant impact on the industry and on firearms usage and history because they are plain Jane effective and cheap, and as a result, they get used very widely. So a lot of law enforcement contracts, a lot of law enforcement agencies using Ruger P-Series pistols for many years, a lot of foreign militaries using them as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.